get started. So if you can each introduce yourselves, Jackie will go down the line with you.
Sure. I am Jackie Coffey. I am a marketing director at Whole Foods, about a mile down the street.
Right. Hi, everyone. Ooh, I'm Kia Eigel. I'm a brand media supervisor at PMG.
Hi everyone, I'm Erica Monteith. I lead our digital department at GMMB, which is a political and advocacy agency based in DC.
Great. So Erica, I'll get started with you. How do you keep up with all these consumer trends, especially now that everyone's using so many devices? People are distracted or not. It's just so much to keep up with. So let us know how you do that.
Yeah, I think for us it really starts with the audience and taking a look at what their behavior is and what they are doing online. So we do a lot of research into our audience from a lot of different sources, Nielsen, Comscore, consumer online and offline data to help us understand what they're doing and what devices they're spending time on. I also think there's been a huge shift since the pandemic. I think it accelerated the move to streaming and cord cutting. And so we have moved with the consumers and where they are. We also meet with a lot of partners and test a lot of new partners to make sure that we are utilizing the most innovative technologies for our clients. Because at the end of the day, you may have a younger audience that is spending more time on TikTok, whereas maybe you have an older audience that is spending more time watching the traditional TV, the linear, the cable. And so making sure that you are taking an audience first approach is really important.
Great. Kia, if you could also let us know how you keep up with these trends.
Yeah, man, especially in the media, in the TV space. I mean, I think there are so many different partners. I know fragmentation has kind of been a word we've talked about a lot. And so I think just trying to figure out the best mix of the different streaming services out there, always looking at the targeting or looking at partners where we can combine and reach audiences across a lot of different streaming CTV partners and trying to figure out which one pops the best. I think it's also trying to figure out performance across those because at the end of the day, you're going to see completion rates are the same across all of them. So then taking that the next step and saying, okay, we've reached the right audience, but then what are the next steps there? And so I think testing different audiences and also the insights and reporting we can get from all of these partners helps us kind of narrow down which partners we'll run with moving forward.
Great. I think when we spoke, you mentioned how you had a client that wanted a longer spot.
Yes.
So how did you convince them that shorter was better?
Yeah, and I know we talked about a longer spot earlier today with Remax, so I get it. Brands want beautiful, long storytelling creative, but all of us are in the digital space and we know that consumer attention continues to drop year over year. So I think the biggest thing is we show that to our clients and say, we know you want this beautiful creative spot. And I think the Remax example was a great idea to showcase, like we can show this internally, we can show it to our stakeholders, get them really excited. But in the media space, we have to have a digital story arc versus a traditional story arc. So where we want to build up and we want to see this beautiful something come to a climax and then at the end you have a resolution. But in the digital space, we're really trying to tell our partners that you've got to get your logo right at the beginning within, I think it's in YouTube, we want it within like the first 1 second or something. You also need to make sure you have a really enticing audio. So a user, because a lot of users are on their phones and kind of get them to perk up and look and see and pay attention to your spot. And I think we also just showcase, again, like the attention and all the different, having cut downs also helps with scale, right? You're not going to be able to run a 60-second across a lot of different CTV or especially reaching those younger consumers across TikTok. So I think we always try and showcase the consumer behavior when we look at the different audio spots and always trying to, I know we also work with a lot of different partners who help with attention. I know there are some partners here that are using attention metrics to see if people are actually looking at their screen or even on their phone. Are they like holding an ad longer before they scroll? So that's something we're looking into. Also a lot of different partners who can help us with maybe put something before creative, like, hey, look up, or here's a stat that you can think about before your creative comes up. So we're looking at all those different ways to draw attention to our CTV ads as well.
Great, thanks. So Jackie, let's talk, since you're a client marketer, let's talk about your target market. Also, are you basing your messaging more on upper funnel, lower funnel? How are you leveraging that? And yeah, like also talk about creative as well.
Sure, I'll talk just a little bit about everything. So I guess our target, and hopefully some of you in this room are our customers and our target, but how we define our customer is someone who is very food engaged. They're very passionate about what they put in their body. They're very health minded. They exercise. They tend to be a little bit younger, have families, and then have a higher income. How we target is based on our RFM model, and that stands for recency, frequency, and monetary. So we segment out our customers based on an RFM model, and then we extrapolate that data into either first-party data or third-party data. That data then goes to our lovely media vendors, and that's how we reach our audience in a kind of the media ecosystem. I think the second question was around
Messaging and
Messaging.
how you're changing that
exactly.
based on channel, and also the creative aspect too, if it's like together or you think about that separately.
Sure. What's interesting for us, and probably a lot of retailers and brands, is that we've had to adjust our messaging strategy based on the economy. It's very volatile right now. Inflation is kind of a challenge for consumers and for brands. So we historically had used upper funnel channels for upper funnel messages, which is kind of like media marketing 101. But we've pivoted since then, and we've realized that it needs to be a blended approach. We can't just have a longer form storytelling anthem. Similar to what Kia was saying, we also need to tell our customers the why, the reason to come to Whole Foods. And a lot of that right now has to do with savings and talking about how you can actually get a really competitive price point at Whole Foods. So that's kind of how we're adjusting both our video messaging and some of our digital messaging to adapt to the economy, to inflation, and just to what our customers need from us right now. And I know there was another question.
Creative, like if the creative piece is changing based on the
Based
channel.
on channel, yes.
Yeah.
It is. We try. It's one of those. We try to do our best. It's not always as easy as I would like to make it sound, but based on resources and bandwidth, we do try to be as customized as possible based on how a customer is consuming media. So mobile and kind of how you're consuming video on your phone is different from CTV. I'd like to say we're more dynamic than we probably are. It's kind of the evolution. We're trying to get there day by day, but it's harder, especially being a brand that probably has been around for a while. We just move probably slower than. I don't hate to admit it, but we do probably move slower than we would like.
It's a testing and learning. So
It's a testing and learning.
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, great. So let's shift on to budget. How are each of you shifting your budget from? I'm pretty sure it's trending from linear to digital, but can you explain that? And also, what is driving the most ROI for you? Like, which channels are driving the ROI? Because at the end of the day, that's what I guess senior leadership wants to know. Like, what's really and how you and that's how you optimize going forward. So, Erica, if you want, we can start with you.
Sure. So I think it's really interesting in the political space because there's still a lot of dollars that go to TV because it is where we can see competitive. So we know when a partner goes up with 800 GRPs, a candidate can easily say, well, let's go up with the same so we can meet them where they're at. I think when Google and Facebook released some of their competitive, it helped us in that sense. This last cycle we heard, oh my God, our partner is up on YouTube or our opponent's up on YouTube. Now we need to go up on YouTube. We have been, as much as possible, talking about looking outside of those competitives and making sure that we're not just going up on TV because our opponent is up on TV, and really looking at where our audience is spending their time. And so we have started to see a pretty big shift from TV to digital. We also like to always remind our clients that connected TV is still very much so a TV-like experience. It is just considered digital. And I think that is a really big piece to point out, is that you are still getting those full screens, you're still getting that attention. So it's a really important piece for us that we like to call out, that it is still on a TV screen. You can still utilize your TV creative. depending on the format, there are some formats that we don't recommend that for YouTube and others that are more of a digital experience. But I think that's a big shift for us. And we are pushing our candidates, our clients to lean more into digital and to utilize that, especially with their creative. There's just a lot more that you can do. We're also looking at different areas where maybe TV is really expensive and you can easily go up on digital or CTV if you don't have a big budget. It's a way to have that TV experience with a smaller budget.
Yeah, I totally agree on the budget piece. I think so. I oversee like branding and awareness for a good chunk of the retail clients at PMG, and because kind of with the economy and things like that, branding and awareness budgets tend to be cut, right? They want the ROI at the end of the day. And we know the traditional ROI channels. We know that search. We know that social. So I think one of our biggest challenges is continuing to showcase that you still need to have branding and awareness, because people need to know about your brand. They need to know about your products, your brand messaging. So I think to your point, it's helpful to say, look, connected TV, we can actually be in these places. We can target a little bit better, so there's potentially a little bit of less waste. But I do definitely see that shift. I know earlier today we talked about live sports probably being one of the bigger reasons that people are still doing linear, kind of those big moments, I would say is one. But, PMG started as a really a digital first agency, and we're really seeing a shift of clients, instead of having a digital and traditional agency, to them coming to us to do both. And I know there are partners that help us do linear and digital. And so I think we're in the space of doing both, and we are seeing more budget pivot to CTV for a lot of those reasons. But it's hard. I mean, it's hard to prove out the awareness budgets and, to CEOs to be like, look, like we drove awareness. Sorry, we can't directly draw a line to ROI, but you have to have it. So that's probably one of my biggest conversations I have on a daily basis, is proving that out. But I think in connected TV, we can prove that out a little bit more. We can show some conversions. We can show site traffic. Again, it's not going to be as impressive as some of those lower funnel channels, but I think that's helpful. And I think the audience insights we can gain from CTV, those are getting better and better to showcase, hey, here at least is where we drove awareness versus here are the GRPs that we hit.
Great. Jackie, if you have any insights.
It's interesting hearing Erica and Kia speak. Awareness is actually a dirty word at Whole Foods, because our leadership and myself included and my team has heard this many, many times, but it's not about awareness, it's about relevancy. And so we tend to shy away from awareness metrics and really focus on visit intent, KPIs that are a little bit kind of middle funnel for most of our kind of brand campaigns. And I say this because it's always a challenge with all of the data that we have, and we also look at ROI and we kind of map back brand perceptions and ROI, and we try to tell that holistic story. And what we found with video is that yes, we're moving towards POLV, digital video, and we're seeing stronger ROIs compared to linear. However, it still doesn't have the reach for us. So we have to balance the two, especially going into upfronts. We have to have that in the back of our mind and take options when we need to, and just stay nimble when we can.
Great.
Do you think awareness is kind of a dirty word, to your point, because Whole Foods is so well known, right, as a brand name?
It is, and
Yeah.
I'm biased because I work on the kind and brand side, and when I used to work in agencies, it was a different challenge.
Right.
So for us, awareness isn't something that we necessarily choose as a KPI, but for
Right.
others, of course, it is something that you need to drive, especially if you're first, starting off, you're a small CPG or whatnot.
Yeah, makes sense.
Very interesting. I guess I'll never ask an awareness question again. Just kidding. Kia, if you can tell us about, are you able to measure across different devices? So sometimes I'll be watching, I'll be watching Hulu, and then I'll see the same ad 3,000 times, and then I'll see it again on Spotify, and it drives me nuts. And I just, like John said, I'll just start hating that brand. He said that at some point. So can you explain if you're able to measure across devices? Also, is frequency still an issue for you guys? I feel like on the consumer end it is, but let us know for the agency end.
Yeah, especially to your point about scale. So I think a couple things. So the first is yes, we're all consumers, and we all know when we see the same ad over and over again on our connected TV platforms, it drives us crazy. And I think that's also a good thing to talk to our clients about is if you have a longer form, like let's cut down a couple different shorter forms, and that way we don't get as much ad fatigue. You may see it different. If it's a different product, you may see a different product feature or a different product set or color, and I think that's really helpful with scale, so having those lower formats or shorter formats to drive more scale. But yes, frequency is huge for us. I know there's a lot of sellers in the room, and I know sometimes you guys will just say, oh, we're not scaling, let's just up the frequency, or maybe you don't even bring up the frequency conversation when we first do a buy. So I feel, as an advertising agency representing my client, that I make sure I always bring that up. I feel like that's my responsibility is to protect that for them. But yes, I think one of the biggest things for connected TV is that we have a partner, either an overall measurement partner or a DSP that we work with, where we can track frequency across multiple different connected TV partners and make sure we have that cap on there. I think that is super important.
Erica, for voters, are you able to do that as well? I know I was bombarded the last cycle, so I don't know if for your segment you were able to manage that for your clients.
We do. It's something that's really important because similar to brands, it can turn voters off. We know that there is a certain frequency that once we hit that frequency, they will literally start to have a negative view of our candidate, which is the complete opposite of what we're trying to do. And so we have to be really careful about that. We have to really look at our frequency caps, really understand where we're buying to make sure that we aren't having a lot of overlap between our partners. So we do a lot of overlap analysis to see where we are getting incremental reach, where we're getting incremental frequency, because that's really important when you're trying to reach different voters is you want that next household, you want that next person, because that could be an entire election.
Yeah.
And so that's really important for us, and making sure that we have that across all of our partners and that we're looking at it on a constant basis. And once we start getting people to vote, we actually start uploading lists and excluding them so they stop seeing our ads, so they stop seeing that information. So if there's a re-election or what have you, they don't have a negative view of that candidate.
That's great. I remember getting text messages. I don't know if you were able to measure with the tech along with the SMS messages and the video. I don't know if you were able to sync those together to see.
We are able to take a look at those and see. We really do a deep dive analysis. We don't get full voter rolls until right around this time, so then we can go back and see, which is kind of frustrating because obviously elections have already happened. But I mean, you win or you lose, so you kind of know whether it worked. But really understanding, we can then go back and attribute different platforms, different mediums to what's working, what's not, so that we can learn and do better in the next cycle.
Great. Thank you. So I think we are almost at time. So if I can ask each of you your biggest lesson learned in video in the last 6 months. Jackie, we'll start with you, if you're ready.
Yeah, sure. I'm always ready. I'm just kidding. I said this before, but one of the things that we've learned, especially in the last few years, is that you need to stay nimble, take options, don't be afraid to fail. And I don't associate taking options with failing, but sometimes it does have that connotation because you are pulling back on a plan that you got approved, that you were excited about. So for us moving forward, we're really trying to build contingency plans, just think and look around the corner when possible, so that we are able to be more flexible with our buys.
Man, for me, I think just the fragmentation and how many new CTV partners are coming out there, especially the AVODs. So many partners are now, kicking out ad-supported solutions. So I think for me, the biggest challenge is figuring out where to run for all of those, and then also ensuring that we're reaching the right audience. A lot of our clients wonder, are people actually watching the ad-supported, or are they paying for the not ad-supported version? And so the biggest thing that I've been focused on this year is really looking into the research of who is paying for ad-supported versus not. And I've kind of found that people are paying for the ad-supported because there are so many out there right now. We all have our different shows, and then it's also dealing with timing and churn. So people may buy one ad-supported solution because their favorite show is on there, and then may cancel it that next month. So it's trying to align all of those pieces with all of the different channels at this point.
I think for us, a big thing that we're really focused on is we have TV and digital in-house, so we're really focused on integrating those two teams and really having the communication across the teams. We've really leaned into ACR data, so automated content recognition data, which is basically a pixel on a smart TV that's opted in, and it allows us to see who our low TV viewers are, so then we can then target them on digital and we can reach them in other mediums. So we've really leaned into that over the last, I'd probably say 2 years. And then I also think, to Kia's point, it's testing those new partners. Even though we're in the political space, we have a lot of advocacy partners, so we're testing things like Netflix and Disney where we can, HBO Max, to see how the performance is. Is it going to go well? Is it reaching an audience that we want to hit? Especially Netflix right now, it's national, not a lot of targeting. There's not a lot you can do with it, but we're testing it with a partner to see, is this something that is going to be beneficial for our other clients, or is this kind of maybe it's a play for certain brands but not others.
Great, thank you. So we'll open up for questions. Otherwise, I'll keep on asking questions. I have more questions.
I don't have to move here.
It made it easy for you. Yeah, I'm Danny Quinn from RTB House. My question's for Jackie. Jackie, I know you mentioned taking options could be looked at as failing because you had that plan approved and all that, but you ever think of it as a strategic option where you're looking at your plan holistically, seeing where you're having solid performance and potentially reallocating that?
I like the positivity. Yes, I mean that's a great way of looking at it, and we've made adjustments just based on either customer shifts or even business needs. But yes, I prefer your outlook on taking options for sure.
Anyone else have a question? I actually want to talk to what Kia, you talked about. Well, first of all, on Thursday, we have an AVOD panel talking all about that, so you make sure you tune in for that. Yes. But talking about when you guys are, you have text messaging and, you went over all the different channels. Obviously, there's a certain age, like, how do you know in the difference of, okay, who finds text messaging more convenient and who finds it invasive, and I think that also, Erica, you sort of touched on that. You sort of see where you're reaching them and when you're looking at it back, and Erica, maybe this is more for you because you're it's a campaign, so you don't have, like you lose or you don't, and so it really is a little bit more, I think, stressful for you. So how are you able to maybe test where you go for those particular channels, given the audience, and you don't maybe have that test and learn flexibility that a brand might have?
Yeah, so we do still do a lot of test and learn. I'm sure everyone's seen polls are good, great, not great. So we don't necessarily 100% rely on polling because it can really steer us off course. We do a lot of brand lift. We do a lot of in the moment, like down and dirty testing. And I know it's not going to be your perfect treatment and control, but we don't have time to do a perfect treatment and control. So we do a lot of those down and dirty tests that can help us directionally understand where we're going, how our audience is responding, and it allows us to make quick decisions that we can adjust plans in the moment so we don't have to wait for a big test. We do this a lot in crisis comms. If something is happening, something's going out, you don't have a lot of time to test those messages. So you kind of have to do something that's down and dirty and be okay with it not being perfect. And I think that's what we've really leaned into is we're okay with things not being perfect and understanding that we're going to take this and run with it from a directional standpoint.
Yeah, are you finding that are older demos okay with text messages? Like, what are you seeing? Are you or even just, you're seeing more older people, YouTube, Stuart's father now has YouTube channel. What are you seeing more of now?
It's definitely generational. We're also finding that how you talk to people on text is generational. Gen Z, if you put a period in something, they think that you are aggressively coming for them. So don't end sentences with punctuation. So we're also having to notice that it's how we're also speaking to them in text. For older generations, we're doing it more as letters and saying who it's from. My father-in-law always signs his text Dad Brad. I'm like, I know it's you. But it helps them and it helps feel more natural. And so we're also adjusting the language that we're utilizing in text messages so everyone's not getting a blanket text message that they may look at and think of as invasive.
I guess my hey exclamation mark would just not do well.
Yeah. Periods with Gen Z are just not their jam.
And finally, I just want to, going now back to you, Jackie, as far as we just were hearing that, it's okay if you fail a little bit, and I guess this is going back again with your question. I know as a brand that you've been around a little bit longer, so you maybe don't have those flexibilities, but do you still, there's so many channels, there has to be those times when you can say, all right, maybe this percentage is okay if we lose, if it's a bomb. Like, do you sort of set aside that for your budget?
We do, and it ranges between 8 to 12%, depending on various situations. But we try to have what we call an innovation fund for every quarter, so that we can test, trial new partners, both media partners and then data partners as well. So it is something that we try to incorporate as frequently as possible. And then if we aren't able to spend, we roll it into either another proven partner or whatnot. So, great question.
Great. We got some more.
Hi, this is Gina Wheelahan. I think my question's for Kia. When you're kind of fighting for those awareness funds, what have you found to be maybe the most effective at convincing folks why it is important to still invest?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think for me, the biggest thing are brand lift studies. A lot of the times, if we get it as added value, hint, hint, other sellers in the room, I think that is the biggest piece, because then they can actually see some result and they have something tangible to bring to their C-level. I love your word innovation. I think too, another thing is just, hey, like, this is cool, this is new. We kind of have a term at PMG called NBDBs, which has never been done before. And we love showing that to our clients, like, hey, like, a real big thing for us is like betas. Like, we don't think your competitor can be here right now. We have this beta opportunity for you. Or being like the first in this space to do something. Those are kind of the two biggest ways that we are able to pull those funds. Yeah, great question.
Probably different for Kia than the two clients on the panel, but two-part question, sorry. If you had more money, what would you spend it on first? If you had to get rid of, what would you delete first or cancel?
That's a good question.
Sorry. But I want to know for myself.
I think for us it depends. I think if you're doing an awareness, you're going to want to lean into video, because we know it works. We know that we can do brand lift. I think brand lift is, to Kia's point, really important to show that awareness is working, because reach and frequency is great, but it only goes so far when convincing people that this is where you should put your dollars. I think for lower funnel things, I always, especially when we're trying to persuade or change minds, we always lean into search, because it's a great place, because somebody is raising their hand, they're asking for more information, and if somebody else a competitor is on those search key terms, they're telling your story for you, which is never something you want. And I think for us, because budgets are so big sometimes with TV's an easy place for us to cut, where we can go to CTV, we can go to streaming, we can go elsewhere, because we view our budgets as just video, TV, digital, everything is just video. And so we're looking at it from a performance standpoint, and then we're also looking at it from a spend standpoint. Where are we getting the most bang for our buck?
I think for me, since I am a awareness branding person, I think more budget would be almost in more creative solutions for the awareness solution. So for example, instead of running an ad on Hulu, what about like pause ad, or more of like a takeover? Those, like a one-day takeover, I think those, they are more expensive, but they really can just really drive more mass reach and things like that. So also, people testing in metaverse, like there are so many other creative solutions that do cost a lot of money, or working with a publisher to maybe do some really cool custom content. Those are some of the pieces that typically get cut just because they are a little more expensive. In other places to cut, sometimes mid-funnel, there are is driving traffic really converting? Like sometimes those mid-funnel metrics is sometimes I feel like where we can cut, just because you don't know if that's actually driving the full ROI at the end of the day. So I think that's probably, if I ideally could cut things, it would maybe be more in that area.
This is like the old adage, if you had an extra dollar, where would you spend it? And I actually fully agree with Erica. Paid search would be the first place that we would go, for the reasons stated. And then after that, I would probably say foundational technology and data to just help with attribution, data mining, piping, things to that degree that can always need a little love.
And I think search is obviously like the best place to drive ROI, but then at the end of the day, sometimes you can hit your limit, maybe on like more non-brand search and things like that. But I think with brand search, sometimes we fund it to the max, and then it's like, what else can we do next? So.
Well, that was awesome, ladies. Thank you so much, Jackie, Kia, and Erica, and of course Barbie for moderating. Everyone, big round of applause.
Thank you.
Yeah.